Another client called and said, you know, my home looks like an archaeological dig. There are so many levels of civilization to uncover. She was a writer, and she said, I'd be famous by now if I knew where everything was. So that is how I began. And I just kept teaching myself all the new ways to organize and teaching other people. This is what I find fascinating, which is why I wanted to tell you the story. Miraculous. The problems I saw 42 years ago, I really still see today. And some of the solutions have changed. Many haven't. This is the difference. 40 years ago, you might have said, I have 10 things to do on my to-do list I should have done yesterday. And today, you've got a whopping 25. You're overworked, you're overwhelmed, on the verge of collapse because there's so much information, so many expectations, and so much expected of you. It wasn't quite like that back then. So things have really changed. Plus the internet, fabulous as it is, has created a little bit of a sense of urgency. So things have really changed. But people still call me in for the same reasons, for closets, for papers. Those were the number one, number two reasons I was called in. So anyway, I obviously loved what I've done because I've been doing it for so long. I don't think I'll ever stop. I particularly love teaching and I love writing my blog, which I think you'll find the connection here or the link how to reach me. And if, by the way, if anyone needs to reach me, my email is there too. Just let me know how you know me and I'll get back to you. So today we're going to get organized. So I'm just wondering how many here really need to get organized, or you're organized and you need more tips. Who's organized? Hey, Sherry, hi. So we're going to start a slideshow of some really cool information. And then I'm going to go over the most important things I want you to know when we finish the slideshow, and then questions and answers. Okay, so let's begin, Erin. Why are you so disorganized? Well, disorganized people move through the world differently. They have a different style, a different pace, a different mindset. They go to that place of inner chaos when a task is overwhelming or time consuming. You'd rather be doing something else. Well, I don't blame you. But then disorganization multiplies and you have no idea where to begin. And before we move to the next slide, that I've done some research lately, and my current blog article is about this. It's remarkable that disorganization will absolutely help reduce stress and anxiety. It just calms you down. So we're going to see how. Now we can go to the next slide. 10 reasons why it's so hard to get organized. The struggle to get organized looks different in each person. It depends on your personality, the way you were raised, even your environmental circumstances. But rest assured, you're not alone. And we know that with the almost 50 people here tonight. Okay. You don't know how. I would say this is a big reason why people need organization or need someone to come in and help them. Sure, you're smart, you're capable, but just seem to have a block when it comes to getting organized. You read all the books, you listen to the experts, you come to programs like this, but you still can't get your life in order. When you think of yourself as someone who doesn't know how to get organized, you can develop habits that really aren't going to work for you. Okay. You can't get started. Another big one. Starting a big project like getting organized can feel overwhelming, making it easy to put off. But this is just another mental block that you need to break. Getting organized is always the toughest part. Getting started is always the toughest part. And you may find yourself looking for distractions or interruptions, which I'll discuss later. Okay. Now, you believe your situation is different than everyone else's. If I had $1 every time someone told me this, I would be very wealthy right now. Although environmental circumstances do play a role in your ability to get organized, it shouldn't stand in your way. You have the ability to change because organization is just a skill, like any other skill, and you can learn it. Everyone is wired differently, and that's the truth. Some people seem to have a knack and others need a little more help. I mean, think of yourselves in your own household. You may have been organized, your sibling wasn't. Generally speaking, in a couple, one is organized and the other isn't. So there are always these charming odd couples, but think of your own environment and how you grew up. Okay. You think you need to clean up first. I mean, people say before you come over, I need to clean up. And that, I'm just going to tell you, you don't ever have to clean up first, because organization really starts up here. It starts in your head and how you think. I remember when I was first in business, I had a meeting with the CEO of Macy's, and he said to me, do you know the difference between people who are organized and people who aren't? And I said, okay, tell me. And he said, well, people who are organized think like organized people. It's just a set of processes that you learn, which I'm going to go over with you, and you adapt. Okay. You don't have the right tools. If you feel like you can't get organized because you don't have the right tools, then you know this is really an excuse. You don't need the right tools. You need to first start changing habits that aren't working for you and putting strategies together because why? It's going to make your life easier. Okay. You don't want to. It's easy to let feelings like this get in the way, especially when it comes to doing something that seems so hard. More than likely, you'll never find the motivation to actually get organized because you don't want to do it. But I can tell you, and this isn't just I'm saying it, it's from everyone that I've seen over the past 42 years, it's really much easier to be disorganized than to be disorganized, because you don't have to pedal backwards. You don't have to backtrack. You don't have to remember everything. Your life is just much smoother when you're organized. Okay? You keep anticipating how hard it's going to be. Now, this is a tough one. It's a tough one to get over for most people because you're psyching yourself out. Honestly, it's never as hard as you think it's going to be, because once you've done it, you realize it wasn't that hard because you've put a system in place. I promise you, it's harder to be disorganized. Okay. You have a fear of failure. This is one of the biggest reasons why it's hard to get organized, because you feel like organizational attempts need to be perfect, and they don't. This will prevent you from even starting. Organization is something that requires consistent effort. I mean, if you just strive for perfection, you'll become a hot mess because it's not attainable. And in the slides, we'll talk more about it. You haven't found the right strategy. This is so key. You do need strategies in place in order to not only get organized, but stay that way. The trick to getting organized is having a strategy that works for you, not your mother, not your next door neighbor, not your girlfriend, not your spouse. It has to work for you and your personality. It's going to take some experimentation, and then you'll find the right fit. Okay. And you have resistance to getting organized. It's because it's overwhelming, or it's time consuming, or you'd rather be doing something else. But it's much easier. I keep saying that. It's really much easier to be organized because it's going to save you time to do the things that you really want to do. Okay? What freedom from disorganization looks like. If the reasons I've read to you resonate with you in any way, you may be wondering why you should get organized if it's so hard to do. Because of how good freedom from disorganization looks. Getting organized has the power to transform your entire life for the better. Learning how to get organized is a skill, and this skill provides you with tools that give you the power over your own life. Being disorganized means struggling way more than you need to. Okay? And this is how organizing has changed. And I mentioned this a bit in the beginning. Here's what is fascinating and what's new. Not much and then some. The problems I saw 42 years ago, I still see today, and many of the solutions remain the same. What's mostly changed is that 4 decades ago, you might have said, okay, I have the 10 or things to do, and today you have a whopping 25. Sure, you're overworked, overwhelmed, and sometimes you feel like you're on the margin of collapse. And back then, your mamas did too, okay? Paper to digital. When I started organizing, paper was the number one American problem. Closets were busting out all over. Time management was a mess for many. Systems became a buzzword, and people were beginning to think organized thoughts all in that order. Today, move over paper, digital, everything has taken over. Closets still need sorting. Systems of every kind are being taught, and people are still trying to think organized thoughts, like less is more or clutter is simply delayed decisions. The secret to getting organized is getting started, and that's what we're doing today. Okay. Balance is so key. Balancing out the stress of work and life will give you peace of mind, and we all need that. It doesn't have to be perfect. Sure, we want perfection in airline pilots and surgeons, but for the rest of us, it just has to be good enough. Perfection creates unnecessary stress that's impossible to meet. The imperfectly perfect solution is to step back and ask yourself, how important is it really? And you know what? They've said for a long time, I want to have it all. And you can't have it all. You can have a life, you can have a fabulous life and a balanced life, but nobody has it all and nobody can do it all. It's impossible and it's an unrealistic expectation, but it's one of the reasons why people avoid organization. And I just tell everyone, it just has to be good enough. It has to work for you, okay? You can create a personal to-don't list, not a to-do list, a to-don't list, and learn to say no. Avoid tasks that are a waste of time. Unfriend those people who zap your energy, stomp on your dreams and goals. It's disrespectful to you and your time. Okay. Now, this is for those of you who will do this, you will learn so much. And when I do give classes on time management and people follow what I'm going to tell you to do, they come back and say, I can't believe how I've spent my time. And what would be a great exercise for you to do is to track your time for a week. If that's too much, at least like do 3 days. Write down what you're doing, where you are, what's your goal, what's on your to-do list. But most important, I want you to make note of distractions, interruptions, and who is doing the distracting? Who is doing the interrupting? Is it you? Is there someone that calls you 25 times a day? I mean, make note of that because you do want to see where your time goes. You want to see how you use your time so that you can make the best use of it. So this is a good exercise. I encourage you to do it. So I want to give you the most important ideas that I want you to take away with, the most important suggestions. I mean, if I were to take all 10 of my books and come up with the one tip that's going to make a huge difference in your life, huge, it's this: prioritize. And that makes a major difference because no matter what you think, not everything has the same value as something else. There's always going to be something that's more important. No matter what you're doing, if you set your priorities, then you're working on what's most important to you. So if you have a big project or if you're setting goals for yourself for this year, I mean, make the list, prioritize it, and concentrate on the first 3 to get started in the next few months. If you do, you will make great use of your time and you're getting the important stuff done. The stuff that isn't really important can go, or you can just turn it over to another time. So that is the single most important tip of getting organized, is to prioritize. The second is when you procrastinate because something is overwhelming or it's time consuming or you'd rather be doing something else. What do? We all have big projects that face us. It could be a move, you're looking for a job, you're putting together a resume, whatever it is. We all have big projects. This is going to help you combat procrastination. It's your assurance against procrastination. You can take any project and you break it down into small, manageable parts. You just keep breaking it down and breaking it down and breaking it down into these tiny time slots or tiny pieces of the puzzle. And you work in time slots of, it could be anything from 10 minutes to 2 hours, whatever works for you. Everyone is different. Or you work on a part of the project. Let's say you want to reorganize your closet. So what do? If you break it down and break it down, well, maybe on day one, all you do is you take out items that you just haven't worn, you will never wear, you don't like, someone gave it to you and you wanted to give it back, but you couldn't, something like that. And, pack it up. And right now, there are a lot of people that could use gently worn clothing, especially coats, and you can give it away. But think of part of the project to accomplish as you're trying to get it done. So that is number 2, the second tip. The third is a place for everything, and everything should have a place. If you do that, you won't lose things. So if you do that, you may walk into your room and forget why you walked into the room, but you won't forget where your glasses are or the keys are. Everything should have a home, and you put it back the same place each time. And when you come in to the house and you shed off everything that you're wearing and you put things in their little homes, it will save you an enormous amount of time. My glasses are always in the same place. My vitamins are in the same place. My obvious clothes are in the same place. I keep in the bathroom, I'll keep my hair products together, and I'll put, let's say, shampoos together. I may put facial stuff together. I keep my makeup together. I just group, but it's always in the same place. So I never have to say, I can't find something. It also helps you when you want to scoot out. It saves you an enormous amount of time. And that was number 3. Number 4 is being in control of your time. And the best way to do that is learning to say no. You may be unpopular for a while, but if you don't guard your time, if you don't make best use of your time according to your goals, no one's going to do it for you. It's really up to you. And once time is gone, you know this, we don't get it back. So if people are asking you for unfair, unrealistic requests or expectations, and you just can't do another thing, it really is okay to say no, because then you're saying yes to yourself. And you count too. The next tip is to outsource or ask for help. And that's because you can do anything, but you can't do everything. Nobody can. I'm a whiz at getting things done. I can't do it all. There are things that have to wait. But more so than that, if there are things that I just don't do well, and I need to spend my time doing something else, I will outsource it. I will hire someone. If you don't have the funds to do it, you can barter. That's the time-honored system of exchanging favors. People do it all the time, such as you're terrible doing your taxes, but your friend will do your taxes, and you're a great cook, and you'll make meals for the week for your friend. I mean, just something where you barter services and money doesn't pass hands. But in order to get organized, sometimes we need a team to help us, or we need the support. And reaching out to someone for help when you can't do something well is absolutely okay. I think it's a great idea. And I already told you about tracking your time, which is a fabulous gift that you will give yourself if you do it. And I hope that you do. So now what we're going to do is open up this program to questions, because then we'll get really specific and I can tell you how to do whatever it is you need to do. Okay, so hi.
If anyone prefers to ask questions through the chat, that's fine. This is Erin, by the way. I'll be monitoring the chat and then I can ask them for you.
Right, and also if you ask I know some people are shy to begin with asking questions, but know that there are probably another 10 people who have the same question. So you're just, everyone's helping everyone else. And this is a great group. And I would love to answer your questions. So, and if you don't have any right away, oh, here we go. I can't, you know what, Erin, can you read these? Because I can't read the whole.
No problem. Marietta asks, I have so many photos in frames, but have no room for the frames in my house. What do I do?
Well, okay, are these small frames or are these, you know, giant that you hang on? Oh, we'll get to that in a minute. You know, I don't know how many photos you have in frames. I mean, actually, I faced the same thing when I downsized and I didn't have as much room for all these fabulous photos. So what I did was I first chose the ones that I definitely wanted to display. Then what you could do, you know, keep the other ones packed well and store them. You can maybe store them in a box on a shelf or under your bed in a box with acid-free paper so it would protect it. And then maybe rotate, you know, then, you know, a few months later, 6 months later, rotate the pictures. You don't have to rotate all of them, but bring some out and put some back. And actually, that's kind of a fun, refreshing thing to do. So the other thing is, if you still have too many photos and frames, you might want to give them to family members. I've done that and they love it. Then they don't even have to go out and buy the frame. So that's another way of recycling what you already have in a really lovely way. Okay, we had someone had a question about paper. Erin?
Sorry, the next question is, I have too much paper to file and store. Is there a definitive source for how long you need to keep documents?
So it's only the paper, nothing is digital. Everything is in paper. Well, let me tell you this. Most information, not all of it, a lot of information you can find again online. When I moved from a huge home to a much smaller place when kids were off, and I had 6 filing habits filled with stuff. I mean, stuff about the kids and health records and 40 years in business and just so much information and newspaper articles and you name it. And I knew that I wanted to move on and I didn't want so much stuff. And so I was getting rid of things left and right. But this is what I wanted to tell you. I had 6 filing cabinets. I weeded all the papers down to 2. And the other, I realized I didn't really need all the other papers. The ones that were meaningful to me or important to keep, if it had to do with real estate or health records, of course I kept. But I was amazed at how much stuff I had collected and held on to that was not relevant to my life anymore because so much has changed. So you might want to go through it. And I know it's an onerous task, it's tedious, and start weeding out the papers that are obsolete or don't really have no relevance to your life. And you know, you might have reviews on restaurants that aren't even in business. So keep that in mind. Okay.
She had just a little follow-up question where she was wondering specifically about tax forms and mortgage information. Isn't there some rule about how long you keep that?
Right. I mean, it's always been 7 years to keep your tax records. But I always tell my clients to check with your accountant to see what their guidelines are. I mean, for things that are important, you know, keeping for 7 years. I mean, if you're audited, I guess they can go back as far as they want. But the rule of thumb is 7 years, but ask your accountant. Yeah.
Thank you. The next question is, some tasks are pretty straightforward, but some take creativity and inspiration. Do you have any tips for how to balance the two kinds of tasks and working up the inspiration when it just doesn't seem to be there?
Right. I'd love to know which tasks we're talking about because every task is so different. And I have actually a post about 10-minute tasks on my blog and, you know, how to get it done. But I wish I knew which kind of tasks we're talking about. I mean, if 10-minute tasks are amazing because you can just get them done so quickly. You know, it's the larger ones that take so much time and energy. But you want to know inspiration for one thing you can say to yourself. You know, research has shown we spend more time worrying about doing something and worrying about, you know, what's going to happen than was actually needed. Things don't always turn out the way you worry about them. So we've lost so much time just worrying and contemplating. If you would be amazed if you actually kept a record of it. If you just jumped in and did the task, you would save so much time. What helps is, and I know we're not going to each other's homes, but maybe you could do a Zoom organizing party where you have a couple of friends on and they help cheer you on and help you go through the task. And remember, I don't know what task we're talking about. So that I know is helpful when we cheer each other on. If it's something like housework, well, you might, want to break it up over the whole week. And, every Wednesday is your laundry day or however you want to do it. And then it's not as onerous. So, okay.
Maureen, let me know if that did not answer your question and I'll ask Ronnie a follow-up. I personally have a question though. Yeah. We're living in these times where I think, I don't know if people relate to this, but when we shut down, I think I thought like, well, I'm going to clean and organize my house. But then suddenly, the threat or just the reality of living amidst a pandemic kind of had me lose all sense of motivation.
Yeah,
so
it's been a game changer for everybody.
when a task feels so large, and when that also paired with the fact that we're living in stressful times, how do you motivate yourself to just get started?
Okay, so what did I say about when you have a huge task? It's overwhelming. It was my second most important tip that I don't want you to forget. But do you remember what it was?
Was it prioritization, or that was your first one?
That's the first one. The second one. Okay, we're going to go over.
Break it down into individual tasks.
It is. Yeah, thank you.
There we go. Thank you, Martin.
Yay, Martin. Thank you. Because it works. It absolutely works. You just have to try it. And the other thing is, and this I know to be true too. Let's say there's a task, back to task. There's something that you need to do and you don't want to do it. Sometimes just doing something for this task will actually get you moving. Just, just something. Let's say, I'm going to make it up. You were exercising, then you stopped exercising and your doctor said you better start exercising and you don't want to exercise. But maybe if you just said, okay, look, I'm just going to do 10 minutes of that class, that Pilates class or whatever, or just do weights for 10 minutes and then I'll stop. Yeah. Or you might just keep on going. So give yourself not only just small tasks to do when you break it down, but small time periods to do them in. Get yourself a kitchen timer. Say to yourself, look, I can do anything for 10 minutes, and you can. And then set it for 10 minutes, when the bell goes off, stop. Chances are you won't stop, but let that be your out. Let that be your margin for what you need to do. And it does work. Okay. And so I went back to answer more for the task question, but not knowing what the tasks are. Okay. What else?
The next question is, my inspirational pursuit is writing for television. It's very hard and some days are tougher than others. How do I allocate the proper time for this?
Okay, so when you want to get something done, schedule it. And that is true for, when we're back to normal, have a date night with your significant other. You know, write it in your day planner or in your, you know, on your phone, whatever you keep your schedule. If you want to do something, you need to plan for it and schedule it in. So if in terms of, like, here's what I do, here's what I have a lot of people do. I do a lot of my writing on Mondays. And it's not just by accident, because that's when my blog post comes out. I'm part of a few forums and groups, and we all commiserate on Mondays. I mean, it's just a huge day for that. You may pick a time period during the day when you are most awake and energized. I don't know if you're a lark or an owl, but you should do it during your time of peak activity and schedule it in. So it doesn't seem like you don't have the motivation to do it, because it seems like this is something you really enjoy, but you need to schedule it in. I don't know if you're single, if you have a family, it of course needs to be a time when someone else is watching the kids, so that you can just brainstorm with yourself and create. Okay, and I was in that boat for a long time. Okay, I had 3 little kids, so I worked from home. Okay.
Those are all the questions in the chat. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Thank you. I was going to say, if anyone wants to just unmute themselves and go for it.
Hi, Catherine.
Thank you, Ronnie. Hi, Ronnie. Thank you for doing this. This is really cool. I have 2 questions. My first question is, how do you prioritize when everything seems important?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you determine what's most important?
Okay.
And then the second question is,
let's start with the first one. Let's start with the first one. So, like I said, not everything no matter what you think, honestly, not this thing has the same value. There's going to be something that's a little more important. How do you determine? Okay, it could be a time thing. Let's say you're working on a number of projects and you have deadlines. So something that's due sooner than something else might be a priority in that case. If you're doing something for your boss and your boss gives you 5 things to do, and you say, you know, like, okay, how am I going to, you say to your boss, okay, this is great. Which is the most important thing? What do you need first? So deadlines and time are a giveaway. We'll tell you what's most important. Here are some questions that you should ask yourself, and your priorities will come to mind when you don't know what they are. You say to yourself, and I still do this, what's the most important thing for me to do right now? What must get done and what can wait? And your priorities should come to mind. For instance, if you're trying to get out of the house, you have a doctor appointment, you know, the bed can wait, the dishes can wait, you got to get out the door. So you ask yourself, what's the most important thing for me to do right now? What must get done? What can wait? When you really ask yourself those questions, it will spark your imagination and what you need to do, and your priorities should come to mind. Okay. And your next question, you had 2.
Yes. And yes, my second question, you just said, sorry.
It's okay.
Oh, yeah. Do it at the time of your peak. How do you figure out, like, when is your peak time to do stuff?
Okay. So do you know, like, are you a morning person or an evening person? You know, when are you most alert and energized, where you feel creative? I mean, that's the first thing. You know, when are your periods of best activity, where you can produce the most? Like for me, it would be in the morning, and by later at night, forget it. I'm not. My brain becomes mush, and so that's how you assess what's important, what you need to do. That's one of the things you should assess is your period of best activity, and you should work around that time. Another thing is when you want to work, for all of you who are trying to figure out how to get my work done, how to get involved, how to motivate myself, you want to eliminate distractions and interruptions the best you can. You can put out the fire, before there's a fire. So how do you do that? Well, you might want to turn off your phone if you can, because I had the situation yesterday. I was on this ridiculous thread and there were 30 dings until I finally said, I'm leaving. I can't do this anymore because it was really interrupting what I needed to do. And so that was my way of saying, no, I can't do this. So that's one thing you can do, is eliminate distractions, eliminate interruptions, and think about what they might do. If you have kids at home, they're going to want a snack, or prepare snacks for them that they can take ahead of time, things like that. Think about what's going to interrupt your time and try to solve the problem before it's a problem. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay.
There, I have a question.
Who's talking? Is that Carolyn?
Hello?
Who's talking?
No, this is the person on the phone.
Oh, hi. Hi. Okay.
Hi. I have, well, two quick ones. First of all, I'm sort of downsizing or sorting through my parents' stuff from their house. They passed away. Oh. And that is such a hard thing to do, especially if you're doing it yourself.
It is.
And I just wondered if you had any tips.
It's really hard to do. I've had to do it. It's hard and it's painful because as you're doing it, there are so many memories things you'll see that jog your memory. It's tough. Do you have any relatives? Well, I know this is a tough time.
No, the answer is no. I have goodwill and I have what I want to keep, and that's it.
Oh, so you know what you have, what you want to keep, and what you want to give away. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. But it's a big job to go through things one at a time and stuff like that.
No, it really is. So what I would suggest, since you already know what you want to keep and you want to give away or sell, that's like half the battle right there. So I would just do a little bit every day. I'd rather see you do 15 minutes a day and be consistent than give it up. And I know it's hard, and again, that might be a thing where we can't go to each other's homes now, at least we should not, but you could do, as you're going through it with a friend, a close friend, might do a Zoom with them and let them help, with the encouragement and say, oh yeah, I remembered when, your parents won that trophy or something like that. That will make it a little easier for you. And it's tough. If these were different times, I'd say have a friend come over, hire an organizer or someone who goes through estates, because it will, keep you going. So just be kind and gentle with yourself now. We're in a difficult situation, all of us. Okay?
Right. My other quick question is, it seems like I've been writing lists for years, my whole life, and I seem to never catch up. There's always more.
Right.
And it's psychologically demoralizing. I mean, I just wish there was some way to look at it not to be frustrated.
First of all, I mean, that's the horrible feeling, is that I have all these things to do that I haven't gotten done or should have been done yesterday. So it goes back to the first tip of prioritizing. So, when you make a list, prioritize what's most important and what can wait. Maybe the taxes are most important, and giving away something else can wait. You need to determine that, and that helps you with your to-do list. You prioritize it and concentrate on the top 3, 5 that are most important, because then you get more mileage for your time. You get the most important stuff done, not the least important stuff. And that's what you do. And also, CEOs do this. If you get yourself like a writer's notebook, you can find it at CVS or any of the stores. They're just a couple of dollars. I'm sorry, I have allergies, and that's why I sound like this. What you do is you date it every day. This is your log of information in one place, not on those miserable tiny scraps of paper and Post-it. I love Post-it notes, but for different reasons, different ways. And this is where you put your log of information, your to-do list, when you're thinking out, how you're going to sell your house or how you're going to do the estate. You have it all in one place, the people you speak to, so that it's all there. And what I have found, what people have said to me is that when something comes up, somehow they just know where to go in that notebook to find the information. So it becomes a diary. It's interesting to review. And I think when you do it like this, you know, it seems to be a little faster in terms of crossing off the things that you need to do. It seems to just move a little faster. So that might work for you. There are apps, by the way. I wrote them down so I could tell you if anyone needs them. There are apps, to-do list apps. One is called Asana. I don't use them. I don't use the to-do list apps. But one is Asana, and one is called Todoist, Todoist. And they're both, and one is called workflowy.com, Flowy. These are supposed to be great. They may help you in organizing your to-do list. You can look them up and see if you like the way it sounds.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you so much, really.
Good luck. I feel for you, I do.
So
can I follow up on?
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, was that Martin? Who was talking?
No, actually, this is Tom. I just wanted to follow up on that previous question. What happens for deceased parents when every single item that you have has such emotional value? It's hard to even get started to sort through the stuff and figure out what needs to be really when there's such heavy emotional content, but you're really just hoarding all this stuff.
I know it's really.
I've waited for a good period of time before I got started.
Yeah.
I mean, I put things in storage and I said, you know, I'm going to wait.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's actually a smart thing to do because you're a little bit more removed when you wait. A little bit more. I wouldn't suggest going through everything right away. You know, give yourself, you know, some time to become a little more human again, because it does absolutely rip your heart out. I know, I've been through this. It's really hard. When you're able to go through it, you know, there might be items that you can sell, for instance. You know, just try to break it up as best you can. You know, there might be items that, if you think of it this way, like all these clothes, you know, there are people who really could use those clothes. There might be items that, you know, you just are never going to use. Like my kids do not want my china. They do not want my crystal. They do not want anything silver. It's really different today. So those might be items that you might want to sell or pass on to another family member. I don't know if you, Tom, have siblings in the area. Do you?
No, they're away. And we've already done most of I'm thinking more like, you know, the photographs, thousands of photographs and slides and movies. And someone mentioned the photo, you know, framed photos, the stuff that really has personal.
Okay, so could you, I did this for a client, could you divvy it up, all those photos or whatever it is you're talking about, among family members? Can you divide them up and, you know, that way, because they may want them, not want you to dispose of it. So you could divide up what's in the home that everybody wants to keep or remember. That, you know.
Yeah, we did that. I'm the hoarder who kept the stuff that people didn't want.
Okay, you know, and there may come a time, because are you normally a hoarder or just for this situation?
No, this is the tough one because of the emotional issue.
Yeah, of course it does. Absolutely. How could it not? So, you know, there may be items that you will part with. And I know, you know, it could be a year later. It could be 2 years later. You may look at something and think, you know, my brother, I think, would really want this. I know in our family, we've done that. We've just shifted, given things away to other family members or each other because the timing allowed us to do that. The most important thing, though,
some people. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just going to say,
I was just going to say, some people scan the pictures. They put them on disk or a flash drive, and then they have them, but they don't take as much room.
Right. But another thing you can do is there's something like chat books. I've used them and I recommended it, where you could send them digitally photos and they make books for you, and then you can give those away to your family. I mean, that's a really lovely thing to do. So that's another, you can, there are people who make scrapbooks of family photos. You can do something like that. But I would just urge you to take your time right now, because of everything we're going through, and what you're dealing with is so tough. Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Sure, Tom. Been there, I know. So how are we? We have some more time.
We have a lot of questions, actually. How do you get family members on board to stay organized?
Really hard. Erin and I were discussing this before we started our program. It's really tough. So one of the tips that I gave that she said, that's a really good tip, is if there's someone, whether it's a teenager or your spouse that's like incredibly sloppy, let them have their sloppy space, because trying to control that is not great for them, and it's worse for you. But then if there is space that is, we'll call it family space, it's where everyone used, there needs to be some rules set up out of respect. Now, I was telling Erin a situation, like my husband, he's fabulous, but he's not the neatest person. Never was, and he never will be. And I don't think he even thinks about some of the stuff that he does. So last night, I've been saying to him, we have this fabulous kitchen island. You cannot dump all your stuff there. You cannot do that. There are other people who are using it. And he's tried many times unsuccessfully. So last night he went to sleep, and I had gotten something in the mail, a big box. I took the box, I put everything of his in there and put it on a stool for him, a surprise for him in the morning. But I'm going to tell you, like, it's been pretty neat all day. And I think it's going to stay that way because the message is really clear. And so sometimes you need to have set rules that everyone can agree on when it's a shared space. But that goes back to a place for everything, and everything has its place. It's hard. It is a hard one. I know.
Thank you. Someone in the chat asked, please tell us how you use Post-it notes.
I love Post-it notes for so many different reasons. For instance, if there was something, let's say today, that I did not want to forget to tell Erin tonight, I would have posted a note right here on my computer so I wouldn't forget. I love Post-it notes to remind you to do things. I have, by the way, the best thing you can do, the best way to organize your day is what you do the night before, which should be a few minutes of planning. I do that every night so that I start off the next day like in a good pace and up and running, and I get things done and don't waste it trying to figure out what am I supposed to do. So that's what you should do the night before. But if there are things that you absolutely can't forget, you put a Post-it note, whether it's on there's something you don't want your child to forget or your spouse to forget or sibling to forget, you put a Post-it note where they will see it. If you need to add information to a recipe, let's say, or just a reminder, you can use a Post-it note. They're just great for a myriad of examples, but usually so you don't forget to do something, I think is the most powerful way to use it. Okay.
Any suggestions on organizing / going through mail? I find that I save paper, coupons,
sure,
and then the pile grows until ultimately I go through it all weeks after and end up throwing it all away.
One more thing about Post-its, if there are a series of things that you need to do, write each item on a Post-it, stick it up on your calendar or wherever you're working. And then when you finish it, just toss it away. It is a great feeling to see those Post-its tossed after. That's a good thing to do when you're working on something, is put them on Post-its and toss the Post-its when you've completed it. And mail. So a trick for handling mail is to, when you bring it in, is to go through it standing up, because you will go through it faster. And you can only do a certain amount of things with your mail. There are, you may have to hand it to somebody else. It needs more information. There are bills you have to pay. This is something you have to do. It could be an invitation. So there are a certain amount of things that only are something to read. I mean, there's not much more you can do with the mail as it comes in. You might want to, as this is for your prep, set up file folders or baskets where you can put those categories away, because you can't get to it right then, but at least it organizes your mail day to day so that you don't go back in and you've got like 2 weeks worth of mail, which is onerous and awful. So that's a good thing to do, is to sort it standing up. Either get file folders or baskets labeled where you can sort the mail. Was there something else to the question?
No, it was just adding that they go through it about a week later and then generally throw most of it away because they never really needed it.
Sure. So if you go through it standing up, the best thing to do is to start tossing what you don't need, flyers or things like that, things that you don't need. I always suggest, do not throw something away until you've opened it. I have almost done that 3 times and there were checks in there. So open the mail before you throw it away. It was a hard lesson. And throw out the stuff right then and there that you don't need. Coupons, create a coupon file. And that's where you put your coupons. If you don't have a really accordion case to put it in, then put the coupons in an envelope that you can take with you. You just sort of sort them out, sort and organize them into categories. They could be for different stores or different items. Sort them and have them handy where you can take with you. You might want to keep them in the car. Yeah. What else?
At what point does one do the accumulation of things in the basement? Do you make room down there first, so what you want to keep or give away might be put down there? What about the things in the attic? Should one start there and work down to the basement, or vice versa, or neither?
What are we talking about? Are we talking about downsizing? Are we talking about going through your home and eliminating clutter? What are we talking about?
Sounds like decluttering.
Okay, so when you declutter, it's a good thing to do because it looks awful. And what happens with a lot of clutter is your eyes go from pile to pile to mess, and you just want to walk away. You don't want to deal with it. But when you decide that it's time to organize the clutter, is start with one room at a time, and start with one, it could be an hour at a time, where you go through it and you make the decision that it's going to stay or it's going to go, or you need, and the best you can, try not to say, I'm going to deal with this later, because then you just have to come back to it. So try to make decisions about all the stuff that you have. Chances are it's just stuff that you can absolutely get rid of. So I don't really know what all the clutter is. If I knew, is it just a mishmash of everything? But start with one room and start with a time slot that will just help you begin this project. Yeah. And sort. You got to sort when you're going through your clutter. Okay.
So those are all the questions in the chat. I sent everyone the 2 more question warning, but if anyone wants to unmute themselves and they have additional questions, now is the time.
If nobody else has a question, I have another one.
Sure.
Okay. When you talked about the, oh, sorry. You can go, Fane, if you want to go first.
Are you sure?
Yeah, because I already
so just go on. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks. So my question was, what's a good way to motivate someone to prioritize something you've asked them versus their own priorities?
Right. So, right. Your priorities and someone else's can be very different. Who are we talking about? You're talking about your significant other? Are you talking about a work-related situation?
Yeah, both. My significant other and colleagues at work.
Right. So I think, again, I told you that a time factor is critical in figuring out what the priority is, like when something is due, and because you need so many steps to get that item done. But you might want to help them think through all the tasks that are involved so you can show them why this is a priority, why you need to handle this now. Because something else depends on what you do with that project. So, that should help you, because it will help you think it through and figure out and present it to the other person why it's more important than something. Something is going to be more important than something else. So it could be something because an important client is waiting for it, because there's a deadline, because it's going to take a lot of time and you need to outsource a lot of the material. So think about why it's a priority and discuss that with whoever you're talking to. If it's your spouse, significant other, I don't know what what it is. It could be whether or not, what's more important to do. Move, not move, go to, do a Zoom party, not to do a Zoom party. I mean, you just need, I don't know what the subjects are, but you ask yourself, what's the most important thing for me to do right now? What can wait? There are things that can absolutely wait, and you just need to be cognizant of that. The most important things need to get done by asking yourself that question. I know I'm going over it again, but it's a really important way to function. Also, it helps when you do the hardest part of the task first, because you get that out of the way rather than sitting there and obsessing about doing it or when you're going to do it. So get the hardest part gone, done, and you don't have to think about it. See, I don't like things on my to-do list. I like to get them done. I want them off. I don't want my head to be cluttered. If it's something, it could be, you might find you make a list of priorities and a week later, a couple of them, aren't issues anymore. You may find that to be true too. So that's the best I can tell you right now without knowing details. I hope that's helpful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Catherine.
Okay, so my question was, when you talked about Post-it notes, do you have any other tools or apps, even like favorite books that you didn't write yourself about organization that help you organize?
Well, okay. I don't have other books. I have other apps that I can tell you how to track your time. But I will say this, that Erin and I were talking. I have written, because I counted them the other day, about 63 articles. And everything we talked about tonight is from my blog. I might have I think I have 3 or 4 different time management articles that all of information that we discussed about priorities and time and how is all on there. And there are myths too, by the way, a lot of myths with time, whether it's, you think you have more time than you do, or you say, I'm so busy, but we're all busy. We all have the same amount of time. They're really interesting. It's just different focus with each one. So all the information is from my blog, because it's all my stuff and what I write about. And by the way, it does really well. I have about 1,500 readers a week. So I know that the information is good. So you might just start there. Yeah. You don't have to buy anything, just start there. Okay.
We have 2 more questions.
All right.
One of them I can actually answer, because they're asking, how can I get rid of new CDs and DVDs from my parents' house when you tried to sell it in a tag sale, but you end up stuck with it? You can donate it to the Ferguson Library, because we will sell it in our used bookstore, and 10% of the proceeds go to the library. So but Ronnie, you might want to answer that on top of my answer.
Because people ask me throughout these programs, what about books? Can people donate books to you as well? I had one person say that she had, it was 2,500 cookbooks.
Wow.
I know. So can people donate books to you?
They can donate books. Right now, we're accepting just 1 box a day at a time just because we don't have the storage capacity. And we ask people to not donate things, you know, like old textbooks, or certainly not things in poor condition.
Right.
But for someone with that many cookbooks, I would recommend they reach out to a place like the Culinary Institute of America. I mean, they have a library, maybe they would want them.
A lot of books though to give.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just want to go back to this thing with prioritizing, because you'll become really good at it. And like, for instance, you know, let's say you're deciding, figuring out what to do, and there's a place that's closing, you know, in a couple of hours, and you need to get something, you know, that might be a priority. You know, if you're figuring out, you know, what you need to work on, you know, perhaps your insurance and getting reimbursed is more important than something else, or getting your meds is critical than something else. You just need to think about what is important, what is critical. What if I do this other thing in 5 days? Will the world change? You know, will my life change? You know, that's the way you have to think about it, and you'll become good at it once you start doing it. Okay. Are we?
The last question is, what can you do if you just have 10 minutes?
Okay, now I do have a really good post about 10-minute tasks. And so if you listen, 10 minutes is better than nothing. So let's think of all the things you can do in 10 minutes. You can go through the mail. You can empty the dishwasher. You can straighten up, you know, the toys or the pet stuff all around the house or in the living room. You can make a couple of beds, at least 2 beds in 10 minutes. You might be able to fold a bunch of laundry. I mean, there are a lot of things that you can do in that, like I call it that sneaky time. You might want to prep for dinner. There might, you know, you chop the vegetables and the tomatoes, the vegetables, whatever you're making for dinner. And, you know, you can do that in the 10 minutes that you have. So I love those 10 minutes just to I call it sneaky time, sneaky work to get stuff done. Okay. This was an amazing group, and we still have a lot of people here. You're great because your questions were great and you were really active, and I love that. If you need to ask me anything else you didn't want to ask it tonight, you can email me, but you've got to let me know who you are, how you found, because I prioritize my emails. So, you know, if I see something that it's not a priority that moment, you know, I'll do it another time. But I always like to get back to my clients and students right away. So,
what is your email?
Oh, can we put it up?
Oh, your blog, yes, but not the email.
Yeah, it's up there. It's RONNIGE at Yahoo. Is it up there, Aaron?
I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, great. So, but again, let me know how I know you.
Okay.
And if you were to look at, back to priorities, if you were to look at my emails, you know, I've left the ones that can absolutely wait a day or two. And, you know, I put my emails, different ones in different folders, but on, you know, my phone or computer. But I only worked on today, what was important for today and tomorrow. Okay.
Thank you so much, Ronnie. And thank you everyone who joined us this evening.
Thank you so much. It was great. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
So nice. Have a happy, good, healthy, safe year, please.
Okay.
Yeah. So many people.
Yeah.
Oh, we still have 13 people. Okay. I think I'll have some water. I need it.
Thank you, Ronnie. Much appreciated, everybody.
Oh, thank you. I hope that everyone came away with a lot of good information.